Hey there! What makes a good pen great? I have had a soft spot for the Kaweco brand. In fact, the Kaweco Sport Classic was one of the first pens I ever reviewed, and I really enjoy the brand. They make nice pens, and it's a brand that goes back quite a way, and then it was sort of out of commission for a while, and then Sebastian Gudberlet actually resuscitated the brand, started to make more pens. And he sent me a letter, and along with that letter was a new nib. And that new nib is rather spectacular. Now it's fairly small, as most Kaweco nibs are, so I don't know how well you can see it, but this is a solid 14 karat gold nib, and that's rather spectacular because up till this point, with the modern-made Kaweco nibs, we have only seen steel nibs, and almost all models have nibs of a similar size. So you have the Sport range, you have the Student, which is this pen. You have well, you have a bunch of the different Sport variations. You have the aluminum Sport, the Al Sport. You have carbon fiber. You have the Art Sport. You have all these pens. So you have the Student. You have the All-Rounder, which is pretty much an aluminum version of this plastic pen. They all have nibs of the same size, so you can interchange nibs very easily. It's the Elite that has a much bigger nib. These nibs will fit on a lot of pens, and Sebastian writes me and says it will fit in all series, but not in the Classic, Ice, Elite, and Limited Edition series. So just so you know, but I think that is because, for example, the Classic Sport series has nib collars, have nib units, and you cannot remove the nib collar, at least on the older models. However, in principle, this is a nib unit that comes with a nib feed and a nib collar. In principle, you can pull out the nib and feed. They are friction fit. So I think that if you tinker a little bit, you may be able to fit it in a Kaweco Sport Classic. Bear in mind, I have not tried this. Okay, so then Sebastian asked me, what nib would you like? And we have everything from extra fine to double broad, and I said, double broad. And that's what I got. And to show you that again, this is what it looks like. Well, clearly this is a pen with silver accents and highlights, so you may wonder whether it fits well. It's just what I had at hand, and that's what I put it in. Now, as to the writing performance, of course I'm going to show you how it writes, but I was very pleasantly surprised by the quality of this nib. To me, this has added a whole new feel to the Kaweco brand. As I understand it, and I may be wrong, but as I understand it, these will retail for 55 euros. I understood from Fonto Plumo that he will be carrying them soon. This is November 2014. So hopefully they'll hit retailers soon. As I said, extra fine to double broad, so that's quite a range of pens, of nibs, but I was very impressed. Very consistent ink flow. It has a bit of spring. If you do apply some pressure, you will get some line variation, but then it runs dry relatively quickly, at least with the inks I have tried. And that's the double broad. Bear in mind, a double broad already has quite an ink demand. Maybe if you would try to do that with an extra fine, that would not so much be the case. It's smooth. It doesn't skip a whole lot. I have had pretty good experiences with this. Now, I can talk about a nib for a long time, but of course it's much more indicative to actually show you what it's like. That's what we're going to do next. I hope this was useful. Sebastian, thanks a lot for sending me this. I appreciate it. Let's look at what the nib does on paper. I hope this was useful. I'll gladly see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so here we go with this new Kaweco Gold Nib. I've installed it on a Kaweco Student, and as I said, this is the double broad. Let's have a look if it starts up immediately. So it does. This is Kaweco, so yeah, it is a Student, but we are mainly interested in the nib, which is a 14 karat double broad. This ink, that would be Conway Stewart King Sand, I believe. And let's have a look at some writing. And I decide that I don't like the pen posted so much, so we'll do it unposted. Writing is smooth. This is Clairefontaine paper. And the nib has a very pleasant ink flow, which I like a lot. Now if we go a bit faster, there was one skip there, but in all honesty I was realigning the nib angle, I believe, so I don't think that's too horrible. You see, this is perpendicular to the paper, it doesn't really write well, but once you go down a bit it does. Now what about wetness? Well, no complaints there. I would not call this nib a gusher, but it's definitely not dry either. And of course that's a bit of a property of the ink as well. Now, line variation. You can see that the pen runs dry when you flex it. Well, I mean, it's not a flex pen. I'm going to cheat a little. I'm going to put a little bit of ink in the feed, prime it to make it really wet, just to see what we can do then. It may blob a little. I would say that is a decent amount of line variation. If we tilt the pen a little bit, we can capitalize on that. Now writing. Ultra wet, but with a nice bit of line variation, I would say. Finally, for those of you who enjoy such a thing, reverse writing. Very wet, but of course I've just primed the feed. But that definitely gives a much finer line, as you can see. I have to admit, I am very impressed by this nib. I really enjoy it. It has added a whole new dimension to the Kaweco brand for me. Yes, it is a bit of an extra price upgrade, but then again, if this thing really costs 55 euros, there are manufacturers who charge 150 euros or more for a gold nib. So I think you could definitely do worse, and at least give this a shot. I hope this was useful. Thanks a lot to Kaweco for making this nib available to me. Much appreciated. And I hope this was useful. And I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.